Welcome to Picks and Parlays here on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Great to be with you. I'm your host, Nick Geber. Find me on Twitter, at Nick Geber, Nickgeber. We've got a lot to get to today. By the way, we're also streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Find us on any of those social media platforms and participate in the show. All you have to do is fill out the comments section, search Picks and Parlays or Parlays Radio, Parlay Radio, allow me to say that, correct myself. And our intrepid production team will see your comment and put it up on the screen, and I will mention it on air, even if it's rude, even if it's very rude, provided it's not obscene, of course. All right, well, welcome to the show this Tuesday, January the 21st, 2020. Happy Squirrel Appreciation Day, everybody. I know I'll appreciate the little buggers. It's even when they give you rabies. Okay, today, big show. Triple B, Bookie Bastard Brown is here. Tony Brown. We're going to do some NBA and NHL, Clippers Mavs, Islanders Rangers, and the Vegas Golden Knights with new coach and the Boston Bruins. The Duff Man will come the next segment, and we'll talk some Super Bowl previews, betting trends and tips. If you're thinking about wagering on the big game, you're definitely going to want to check this segment out. And then finally, Tony Tellez will join me. We'll talk NBA, pardon me, college basketball. We'll go back a little bit. We'll go to the minor leagues of the NBA, you know, back in the college days. Butler, Villanova, Kansas State, Kansas, Georgia, University of Kentucky, and Miami, Duke. Those are the games we're going to talk about today on the show. Hope you will participate. Hope you will continue to join us. And most importantly, remember, we're going to give away a lot of free picks on this show. That's right, scot-free. Not $1 will it cost you out of your pocket. But if you should want our expert picks, and there's every reason that you should, head over to our website, picksandparlays.net. We have 35 expert handicappers. You're going to meet 3 of them today on the show if you haven't met them already. And you can get any of their expert picks today for 15% off. Use promo code TIE, T-I-E, at picksandparlays.net. That's promo code TIE, T-I-E, at picksandparlays.net. All right, I'm going to gather my thoughts, because I have about one a day. Get my notes straight, because I have a whole desk full of them. And then we're going to kick it all off right here, Picks and Parlays. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Nick Geber. As I mentioned, you can find me on Twitter at Nick Geber, Nickgeber. I like to keep it easy for you, not too confusing, you know what I mean? All right, let's get to some NBA action. Let's bring in our expert handicapper and all around good guy, MVP of the Good Guy Trophy here at Picks and Parlays. Triple B, the bookie blaster himself, Tony Brown. How are you, Tony?
I'm all right. I'm a little bit under the weather. I've been out squirrel hunting, and the weather's not good, and I think I caught the flu.
You didn't let one of those little buggers bite you, did you?
No, I killed them all.
Because if you do, it's frothing at the mouth, you don't like water, and then you're going to die pretty soon thereafter. So better hope you didn't. Okay, let's get to it, shall we? Clippers at Mavs. The Clippers 30-13, 23-20 against the spread, 7-3 on a 3-game win streak. Last game was a win over the Pelicans. They don't have rabies. They're birds. 11-9 straight up, 9-11 against the spread away from home, second in the West. They're 2.5 games behind the Lakers currently. Paul George is out. They're 6-3 straight up in the last 9 against the Mavs. And for the Mavs, 27-15, 22-18-2 against the spread. They're 6-4, but don't let that, that taint your thoughts, because they are on a 4-game win streak, beating Portland 120-112 on Friday. They're 13-10 straight up, 9-13-1 against the spread at home. They're 5th in the West. Kristaps Porzingis is still doubtful for this game, which is a problem, of course. The total over has gone over in 6 of the last 9, and the Mavs are very small, 1.5-point favorites. How do you like this one, Tony?
This is actually what we call out here in Vegas a trap game. It's a very, 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 very bad spot for the Clippers, and I think the Mavs are going to take this one. It's only 1.5 points. We're going to jump on it. I mean, all those numbers sound good for the Clippers, but I mean, we got some numbers for the Mavs too. I think they're one of the best teams in the NBA on the road this season at 14-6. They won 14 of the 20 road games, so they've been a beast away from home. They're on a 4-game win streak, and you know, like one win starts a streak, one loss starts a slump. So 4-game win streak, I think they're going to keep on rolling. I got a little bit of inside information, nothing too major, but I think Kristaps Porzingis is going to play. He's listed as doubtful, but that's just some of the mind tricks the coaches play with the roster and things of that nature. Doubtful means he could play or he won't. I think he's in this game, and that's going to be the edge they need. They've been real reliant on Luka Doncic by himself. If he can get that extra shooting help and get him some depth in there with Porzingis, I think they're going to win against the Clippers. It's a great spot, too, for revenge. The Clippers took them out in Dallas with a 15-point win, so it's a double revenge spot, road spot. I love Dallas in this spot right here.
Yeah, not a bad call, Darren. You know another reason why they could very well win?
What's that?
Taco Tuesday. Always a good reason. Okay, next up. Let's get to it, shall we? Let's do some NHL. You know what? This is the first NHL segment you and I have done together, Triple B. So let's start with the Islanders, the Battle of New York, shall we? The Islanders at Rangers. The Islanders 28-15-5. They're third in the Metropolitan Division. They're 2-10. They lost the last 3, though, most recently losing to the Hurricanes. They're 13-8-2 straight up, 13-10 against the spread on the road. They've gone over in 4 of the last 5 against the Rangers. And the Rangers 23-20-4. They're 7th, right at the bottom there of the Metropolitan. Almost, one more spot to go. 5-5, lost the last 2-1 to Columbus. They're 13-9-2 straight up, 16-8 against the spread at home. Brendan Lemieux is out for 3 to 4 weeks. They've gone over in 13 of the last 17. And here we go now. The Islanders are 1.5-point home favorites, total 6. The money line on the Islanders minus 120. The Rangers plus 109. I don't know. I love a little money line action. Which way are you tempted to go here?
I got to go with the home team in this one. I mean, of course, we all want the big plus money payouts. Of course, we like the underdogs. But when they don't win, that's just a donation to the casino. I mean, we're trying to get the money here, and the Islanders is the better play. There's no true home court advantage, or home ice, advantage. They're both from New York or whatever. But the advantage in this one is that the Islanders have dominated the Eastern Conference. Like, they have all their struggles and troubles against Western Conference team. They've dominated the East like throughout the years, and especially as of late. They're 5-1 against Eastern Conference opponents, and even better, they're the king of the Met. They dominated the Metropolis division for years now, and including right now, current in the 2020 season, 10-2. That means they took 10 of the last 12 skates against opponents in the Met. I mean, the games aren't played on paper, but some stats you just can't ignore. I love the Islanders at home on such a small money line.
All right, so Islanders at home it is, minus 120 on the money line. So that's what you're going to take, the money line play here, right?
Yeah, just the money line. The puck line means you got to win by 2. It's not really against the spread. It's called the puck line, and that means like a team has to win by 2. You only really want to take those. You got the big teams minus 400, 500 against the basement teams. You'll take them on the puck line to get you some value there.
No, get it. Good tips there if you're betting the NHL. All right, next up, by the way, Fernando Ramirez said, great job, gentlemen. Well, thank you, Fernando. You know what they say, Fernando. Flattery will get you everywhere. Okay, next up, the Vegas Golden Knights against the Boston Bruins. East versus West here. The Knights, 25-19-7, 4th in the Pacific. They're 5-5, but they're only 1-5 in the last 6. They're in a bit of a cooler. They lost the last game 4-5 against the Canadiens. They are 11-9-4 straight up, 10-14 against the spread on the road. The total's gone over in the last 12 for the Bruins, if you're interested in that. The Bruins 28-10-12. They're top of the Atlantic. They're second in the East. The Bruins are a hot team right now, although they're 4-6 and they only have 1 win in the last 4. That's right. You've heard it. So actually, 4 of their total 10 losses have come quite recently here. So they did lose to the Penguins by 3-4, 3-4. They're 16-2 and 9 straight up, 11-16 against the spread at home. David Krejci is a doubt. The total's gone under an 8 of the last 12. You got any insider on that? The Knights plus 122 on the money line. The Bruins minus 135. They're 1.5 goal favorites and a total goals of 6. So I tell you what, the punters are seeing quite a few goals in here. How do you like this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna get killed for this one. You know, I live out here in Vegas, so I mean, it's and I don't want to go against the Knights and show my face in public, but I want to win some money, and I'm gonna have to. This is it's one of those sports in hockey, man, where the Knights they're a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team. When they're rolling, they're rolling. You look in the standings, they're 8 out of 10. They're on 5-game winning streaks, and they're hot. And when they're slumping, they're slumping. And right now, they're slumping. Like you said, just one win in the last 6 games. They're going on the road. They have a brand new coach, and then to top it all off, Boston has eaten them alive. And like, say, only been in existence for 2 years or whatnot. 5 games against Boston. Boston's 4-1, and the one game that they lost was very, very close. Boston has no problem beating the Knights, and Boston's slumping themselves. No way to get out of a slump than a team you've dominated. And I think the Knights coming into town with a new coach, struggling and stuff, not a good spot. And I like Boston at home in this one.
You don't see any new coach bounce here?
Nah, they got beat the first game, this very first game in inauguration, like when he came in, and it takes some time. We were already an expansion team, so we had so much success going to the Stanley Cup in the first year. People just thought we had clicked, but we still got a lot of rebuilding to do. And then to change coaches in the middle of the season like that, it's going to be tough for a while.
My understanding is Carlson's injured, and they've got a couple of other big injuries as well. So, but look, for a team that's in its 3rd year, to currently be looking at this and bemoaning their situation as 4th in the Pacific Division, it's pretty funny, actually. I mean, this team has been overperforming from the minute they opened the doors at the T-Mobile Center.
Yeah, right from the gate. I mean, they came out hot and went straight to the Stanley Cup and took the first game. That's what people forget. Not only did they go, they had Ovechkin down 1-0 in there, but ever since then, it's been a major letdown. I mean, you wouldn't call it a letdown. A 3-year expansion team, I mean, this is kind of where we expected to be, but just after such a hot start, people aren't used to the Knights struggling.
You know what? I followed and was a fan of the Los Angeles Kings for literally 2 decades when I used to live in LA. Had season tickets back at the old Forum. Used to sit there with Bruce McNull before he was arrested. But listen, if you enjoy this game, why don't when the Golden Knights play back here, maybe we should start a new thing. Maybe throw squirrels on the ice instead of octopuses.
Yeah, forget those octopuses. Let's just throw the squirrels. A bunch of them I just killed.
All right, don't kill them. Throw them out so that they can run around and see their little legs scrambling on there. Hey, listen, if you're with Peter, you better not get in touch with me, all right? Okay, we've got to go to break. Triple B, always a pleasure. We'll chat to you soon. Coming up next on the show, don't worry, the Duff Man cometh. Let's talk a little NFL betting picks and strategies. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays. Nick Geber with you here, as I am every weekday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, live on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. And we stream throughout the day on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter social media channels. You can find us there. And if you want to participate in the show, as happened last segment, we'd love to hear from you. Just fill out the comment section, and we will try to bring your comment into the show. Rude ones even accepted. Okay, let's get to it. The Super Bowl is here. It is the 49ers and it is Kansas City Chiefs making their first appearance back at the Super Bowl in some 50 years. Joining me to talk about this and the best way you want to put your hard-earned dosh on this game with some betting tips and strategies. A man wearing an Ohio State shirt. If you're not watching us on the stream but listening to us on the radio, I will endeavor to describe him to you. He's a splendid-looking gentleman sitting in a big leather armchair with a computer monitor behind him, wearing an Ohio State shirt. Looks like he hasn't shaved in about 5 days. Duffman, Joe Duffy, welcome.
Yes, I actually got 2 computer monitors. So,
okay.
Yes, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't shaved in about 5 decades. And as somebody who's spent 65% of my life in the South, I got to find some real Brunswick stew, because real Brunswick stew includes squirrel. And that would be a perfect way to celebrate National Squirrel Day.
The Squirrel Appreciation Day, indeed. And of course, as someone who's resided most of his time in the South, you must just be beside yourself. There's no East Coast teams, there's no Southern teams in the Super Bowl. What's going on with the sports landscape here in the United States? What, the fix wasn't in this year?
No, that's perfectly okay with me. I got to admit, I didn't really even give any thought to the geography of the teams until you mention it. No, we're going to be plenty happy. We'll be drinking craft beer on Super Bowl Sunday and watching this Midwest team and this Southern and this West Coast team.
Are you going to be roasting some squirrel?
I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I'll probably be watching my old tapes of Charlie Simmer and Marcel Dion and Taylor in honor of you.
Very nice. Well, I appreciate that. Let's get to it, shall we? It's the 49ers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs coming back after 50 years, finally. Lots of expectations on their shoulders. Patrick Mahomes had a great game. I mean, I don't know what to say. He threw 23 of 35, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns. But Garoppolo was the one that surprised me for the 49ers, Duffy. And we're going to get to this in a minute because I'm going to throw this over to you for betting. You know, what I found fascinating about this is the way this team finds to win. He threw he was 6 of 8. He threw for only 77 yards. And then all of a sudden, Raheem Mostert pops up, gets 29 carries, 220 yards. What? He got like 1 million touchdowns, 7.6 yards per carry. I thought this was fascinating. I mean, this team really finds a way to win. Given that, having said that, both these teams, I think, the class, I think at this point of the league, obviously, they're in the Super Bowl. But how do you see this one going down? And from a betting perspective, where's the public money going on this?
The public immediately, they came out and they bet the over like crazy. And as of now, 78% of the bets, 92% of the money is on the over. 58% of the bets, 51% of the money is on Kansas City. And I was listening to a sportsbook director in Las Vegas being interviewed today, and he said, look, still, the final 3 days, Super Bowl weekend, 95% of the money is going to come in. But it's been my experience, not just so much the Super Bowl because the sample size is a little bit smaller, but and really it's only been maybe the last 10 years where it's pretty easily accessible, where we can see who the public is betting both offshore and in Las Vegas. But still been my experience that it's somewhat indicative the first 24 hours or so. Yeah, it's not going to stay at 92%, but it's not very likely that, by game time, we're going to have most of the people on the under. So usually the early patterns are true, but I don't think the public's going to continue to bet this up. I do think the total will drop a little bit, but of course, the bookmakers got to be a little afraid of that middle when it comes to the total. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close to 50-50 on the side.
Yeah, but hold on. I mean, if what are the total points right now on this?
In fact, let me take a look on my third computer. The current total is now up to 54 after opening at 51.5, but it looks like it's about 54 across the board. Okay,
so with 91% of the public money coming in on the over, you have to think that total's going to go up, right? Try to balance it out?
The total is already going up. I mean, it opened
up by 3, but it's going to go up more, one would think, right?
I think it could go up another 0.5 point, but again, the sports books got to be really careful because the sharps are waiting for that to continue to go up and then jump on the under. Some of the, those people who bet the total early, they would love to middle it. And remember, legendary gambler Billy Walters, a lot of people thought he was a great sports handicapper. Really what he was best at is line manipulation, manipulating that money and getting the side or the number that he wanted, whether it was on the side or the total. And that's where some of the sharps, look, I'll admit, I'm not an expert on manipulating lines. My expertise is on handicapping, but you got to be careful about that line manipulation.
Interesting stuff, Duffy. Talk to me about some systems that you might play on this game.
Yeah, obviously I'm a system player first and foremost, but it's got to be balanced out with my organic stuff. Teams have won at least 9 of 10 straight up, yet not laying at least a field goal. They're a go against of 48-23, including 2-1 in the Super Bowl. And that would say San Francisco. Obviously, you're in the Super Bowl, you're going to have 2 hot teams, but Kansas City is really sizzling hot. And what it says, again, it makes perfect sense because it'll be the first time we'll use it. But what I always like to say, The NFL is definitely a regression of the mean sport, and what it says that if a team is sizzling hot, but yet they're playing another quality team, which would be the case if they're not laying more than a field goal, this is where they could possibly have a letdown. Now, one Super Bowl specific one, Super Bowl teams with lower winning percentages, but they're not large underdogs, and under other circumstances, an incredible 11-1. That would favor Kansas City. And I remember it's one of these, I think I was telling you about this before. I can't even remember who it was. It was an ex-NFL player who was convinced that, the good rushing teams are the ones that'll do well in the year, and the teams that have been on the field are the teams that'll fade late in the year, but not necessarily so. The better rushing team late in the season and including the playoffs are a fade of 86, 52, and 2. That would favor Kansas City. And we also have one that in the playoffs, teams that were drastically improved from the previous season are a go against of 30 and 15, and that would favor Kansas City. So, a little bit more stuff favoring Kansas City, but it's somewhat balanced there. And I know I had another system that if the line moves a little bit, it's going to favor San Francisco. So yeah, I kind of think the odds makers got it right as far as at least getting balanced action. And San Fran, you could argue, has slightly better pure numbers, but Kansas City probably the better conference and certainly the more explosive offense.
All right, the game in Miami, any geographic advantage to either of the teams of the game being there?
No, I do. I know I said in college sports, and especially when it comes to the NCAA tournament, and even when it comes to bowls and really the smaller bowls, I look into that. Not really so much in the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, if it were, say Tampa playing in Miami or Miami playing in Tampa, there would be. But no, that's not something that, unless it's blatantly obvious where teams playing in state. And of course, we've never had a host city where the team was in the Super Bowl. But no, I don't see any geographic advantages here.
All right, very quickly, we have a couple of minutes left. Talk to me about the difference in styles between these two teams and how they match up for a potential outcome.
Yeah, both of these teams, when I look at numbers, the numbers I like to look at is yards per play, yards per rush, and yards per pass, but relative to what their opponents normally allow. So that kind of, rather than total yards, which says a lot about pace, obviously San Francisco is stronger on the defensive side, and they play more of that old-fashioned smash mouth, where Kansas City is much more of a modern team. They have one of the great, Mahomes is going to go down as one of the all-time great quarterbacks, unless he's hurt. If this kid stays healthy, in the year 2050, we're going to be talking about him as one of the best athletes of the first part of the half century. But San Fran, they're a pretty good offense, better than some people think. They get 7.9 yards per pass at teams normally allowing 6.8. Kansas City is 7.9 to 6.9. So the pure numbers say San Fran's passing game is actually more competitive than some people may think. The Niners hold teams at 0.8 yards per play below their normal average. Kansas City defense might surprise someone. They hold teams to 0.2 below their normal average. So the reality, they are two fairly decent defenses. So that's something to consider with this high total. And of course, I guess there's one injury. We'll take a look at Tevin Coleman as the game gets much closer. He, of course, a key cog for San Fran, especially if you believe that the 49ers need to keep them off of the field.
Well, interesting you're talking about the passing game, and of course, I did mention this, but I mean, there was very little passing in the Green Bay game. Was that because the 49ers were really just adjusting to their competition? Just their opponent?
Yeah, I mean, well, the 49ers, obviously, they got out to that impressive lead, and, they didn't really need to pass. And remember, Kyle Shanahan was the guy who was the offensive coordinator when the Falcons blew the biggest lead ever in the Super Bowl, 28-3. So and that's kind of I'm going to be looking at the fourth quarter total, by the way. I think both of these coaches, regardless of who has the lead, they could be conservative in the fourth quarter for certain reasons. No, San Fran, look, they're a ball control team first, but you kind of implied at the top of this report, I don't understand why Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't get more credit. The 49ers record with and without him, because, coming into this year, Garoppolo had been somewhat injury prone. The record with and without him is amazing. Remember, he's the guy that Bill Belichick apparently did not want to trade in New England. Garoppolo is a very efficient guy. I've always said, I want a quarterback who can make the routine pass. And that's why, all these overrated quarterbacks, they have these ridiculously strong arm, so they can't complete the routine pass. But Garoppolo does that. I know, early in the year he was panicking a little bit, but I think he's really settled down. He's not panicking under pressure. But no, I do think, I think if San Fran can get the big lead, they're not going to pass quite as much. But I do think the 49ers are capable of playing from behind better than some people may think.
Joe Duffy, always a pleasure. You can catch Joe, picksandparlays.net, and you can catch me right here after the break.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays. Man, I love this show. Look, we've done NBA already, NHL. We've had a really fascinating discussion with Joe Duffy about Super Bowl betting tips and strategies. And now we're going to move along to college basketball. Welcome back, Picks and Parlays, right here on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Also streaming live throughout the day on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's talk some college basketball with my good friend and one of our star handicappers, Tony El Tigre Tellez. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Nick, talking some college basketball. And we're right in the teeth of conference season here. As January is moving merrily along. It's a short month in February. Before you know it, March Madness will arrive.
And my birthday, I might add. Going to be 21.
Very good.
Finally make a bet in the casino. Looking forward to it, I'll tell you, Tony. I'm taking donations, by the way. Okay. All right, Tony T, let's get to it. Let's talk some college basketball, shall we? I'm looking at some games here that we've got. None of them say UCLA, which, of course, is very upsetting to me, but then they always win. So let's go Miami at Duke in the ACC, shall we? The Hurricanes 10-7, 9-8 against the spread. They're 6-4. They're on a 2-game losing streak. The last outing was a loss to Florida State. 3-2 straight up, and against the spread away from home. 2-5 in conference. They're down in the 13th, the bottom of the conference there, Miami. Not quite, but almost. 1-4 straight up in the last 5. The Blue Devils, 15-3, 10-8 against the spread. They're third in the ACC. They're 8-2, but look, they lost the last 2, and those were in-conference games, and that hurt big time. I can tell you that. They lost to Louisville and Clemson. 8-2 straight up, 5-5 against the spread at home. Total's gone over in 4 of the last 5, and they are total is 5-2 in conference. So, but still, Tony, huge advantage here. 17.5-point home favorites for the Blue Devils. Maybe that's just an illustration of how bad Miami really are. A total of 149.5. What do you think?
Yeah, you nailed it there, how bad Miami is. I know we talked, remember when we talked Duke and Clemson about a week ago, I was telling everybody how, Duke really was beating up on some bad teams and they were hitting some difficult scheduling spots, and they were laying 10 against Clemson. And I really like Clemson in that spot, and they not only covered, but they won outright. But here we go again with Duke playing another cellar dweller team in Miami. And believe it or not, I'm going to lay the points here with Duke because, again, they've lost 2 straight against quality opponents. Now they're seeing a foe they beat by 33 on the road. Yeah. And at first thought you would think, well, revenge spot for Miami. Well, you can throw revenge out the window because Duke's on a 2-game losing streak, and they've got a hapless Miami team in front of them. And I think they're going to come out here strong. They shoot the ball very well in conference, 50%, 38% from the 3-point line. But just as you said, Miami's just bad against the ACC, hitting only 40%, and they're not defending, allowing 47% overall. So again, I'm going to go ahead and take Duke because look at who they beat. They have big wins against Virginia Tech by 14. Then at home, they've pounded BC by 39, Georgia Tech by 31, and Miami fits in that criteria with those lower tier teams in conference. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the points here with Duke.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Let's talk about Duke for a minute, though. I mean, obviously a perennial monster in college basketball. Does it seem like this season is a rebuilding year? Is that what they're in this year? Because 5-2 in conference play, only 7 games in, isn't great.
Yeah, it isn't. But we kind of looked at this happening here when they faced Clemson and they faced Florida State. There was going to be some troubling spots here in the conference. But look at the conference; it's not really up. North Carolina's down, NC State's down. I think when you look at the Duke, they're not the same team they were last year. Remember when Zion Williamson came in? They were really touted a really, really good team. But the one thing to note here is they are beating up on the bad teams. And again, we're going to see what they are like when the conference schedule gets tougher. And this is another down spot for them. But again, Coach K teams generally round into form here toward the end of the season here as a point toward the tournament. They're going to get in the tournament, but sometimes you get these lulls in February when you approach March here. So we'll see if they can turn it on here. But again, with Duke, I got to see how they handle the physical play because they don't look very, very thick. And you talk about rebuilding. Every year is rebuilding now because they're bringing in these one and done players into their program, and it's really a crapshoot. And these teams don't get better until they're later in the season.
It's really a function of what's in the recruiting pipeline more than anything, right? So, all right, well, let's move along, shall we? Let's go to the SEC. Georgia at University of Kentucky. The Bulldogs 11-6, 8-9 against the spread. They're 6-4, but they're only 1-3 in the last 4. They lost to Mississippi State over the weekend. 2-3 straight up, 1-4 against the spread on the road, 1-3 in conference play. Total's gone over in 12 of the last 18 for the Bulldogs. And the Wildcats, 13-4, 7-9-1 against the spread. They're third currently in the SEC. They're 7-3, coming off a win over Arkansas. 10-1 straight up though at home, and 4-6-1 against the spread. 4-1 in conference play. Ashton Hagans and Dante Allen are both doubtful. Total's gone over in 6 of the last 7. And the Wildcats, 11.5-point home favorites. 145 is the total. 11.5-point favorites maybe seems a little big to me. I mean, are the Bulldogs that bad? I don't think they are.
Oh, they're bad on the road. They have some really ugly losses. And when you look at their loss on the road, 20 to Arizona State, 22 at Auburn, 32 at Mississippi State on Saturday. So their road performance has just been atrocious. And, Kentucky really started off struggling. This is another team with a lot of young players. They couldn't make threes, but look at what they've done in conference. They're making 40% of their shots from the three-point line in the conference. So they've shown some improvement from the three-point line. But looking here at Georgia, they're just a bad defensive team. Efficiency-wise, the worst in the SEC. They're allowing 60% shooting from the two-point distance. So around the bucket, they're not very good. In Kentucky, they got the size, they got the strength. They should be able to get some shots inside very easily against this Georgia team that's not defending. And they can't even shoot the ball against the conference. Georgia just 41%, 27% from three, and they're allowing 51% overall shooting against conference opponents. I just think one thing to note with Kentucky, they come off a really good win at Arkansas. And Arkansas was a team that was playing really well with Musselman now taking over the program. They went into a really hostile environment, got the win in SEC play. That's a big win for them. I think they'll build from that. And again, I'll lay the points here with Kentucky.
All right, Kentucky minus 11.5 it is. Lay the points, Kentucky. Next up, Big 12, Kansas State, Kansas. Big rivalry here. The Wildcats 8-9, 6-11 against the spread. 3-7, win over West Virginia, snapped a 4-game loser that they were on. 1-2 straight up, 2-1 against the spread on the road. They're only 1-4 in conference. Mike McGurl and Antonio Gordon both doubtful for this game. Total's gone over in 9 of the last 13. And for the Jayhawks, bit of the other side of the spectrum here. They're 14-3, 10-7 against the spread. Almost at the top of the Big 12. They're second. They're 8-2 coming off a 65-57 win over Texas. At home, they're 7-1 straight up and 4-4 against the spread. They're 4-1 in conference. Marcus Garrett has been upgraded to probable, so likely will play. But they've gone under in all of their last 7 games. They are 15-point home favorites, 126.5-point total. Same situation as the last game. Looks like a pretty strong home team and facing some rather poor conference opposition.
Yeah, it is, but this is a rivalry game, and Kansas State here. I'm going to take the points. I just see a little bit too many points here. One thing to note with the Jayhawks, they've been held to 66 points or fewer in 4 of their past 5 games. And one thing Kansas State does well, and that is defend. And one thing to note here, Kansas State is coming off a big win against a really good West Virginia team, 84-68, and that's something they can build on. They shot nearly 60% against a really good defensive team there in West Virginia. And sometimes the light turns on for these college athletes. As we said, we're getting deeper into play here in conference, so these teams have the right to improve. And I'm going to lean on the defense of the Wildcats here to stay within the number, which is huge here, 15. I'm just not sold here on Kansas' offensive strength. When you think of Kansas the past several seasons, they were a team that you count on to make their shots 50%, 40% from 3. That's not the case, just 44% from the field, 34% from 3 against the Big 12. So they're not shooting the ball like they used to, and they don't make their free throws at 66%. I believe here that the Wildcats defense can keep them in this game, so I'm going to take the 15. I'm not going to take them on the money line. I just think they can stay within the number.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on. Last game, Butler-Villanova in the Big East. The Butler Bulldogs 15-3, 11-6-1 against the spread. They're 7-3, but they have lost the last 2 in a row. Most recently losing to DePaul. They're 3-2 straight up and against the spread away from home, but they are 3-2 in conference. 1-4 against the spread in the last 5 against Villanova. And the Wildcats 14-3. Two hot teams right now. Well, maybe after losing 2 in a row, not so hot right now, but let's just say hot if you want to look at their records. The Wildcats 14-3, 9-1. This is a hot team. Their last outing, though, was a loss to UConn. They lost their first one in 10 games. They're 9-0 straight up at home, though, and 5-4 against the spread. They're 4-1 in conference play. 7-3 heads up in the last 10 versus Butler, and they've gone under in 6 of the last 7. And they are actually only 4-point home favorites here. Total of 129. How do you like this one, Tony?
Yeah, I think this might be a really close game. Could be a one-possession game. That's why I'm going to take the points with Butler +4. Of course, Villanova, they failed to cover their past 2 at home close wins to DePaul and Connecticut. And I've got Butler a better team than both of those. And one thing to note here, Villanova just not shooting the ball well against the Big East. Just 40%, 31% from 3. And one thing with Butler, they have shot and defended better than Villanova against the Big East, where they allowed just 38% shooting, 28% from 3. And they've played well, and I look for them to respond huge here off back-to-back losses. And of course, Villanova, not a team that defends very strongly around the bucket. And one thing to note here is I do believe Butler can clean up their turnover issue in this spot. And I'm going to take the points, Nick, and I think it will be a very close game. Could be a one-possession flash finish here.
How do you like the Big East in terms of its overall competitiveness this year?
That's a good question, because I think this year, I think a lot of the major conferences are relatively weak. And I think I would put the Big East there. Villanova is not as strong as we see in the past. Creighton, they shoot the ball well, but again on the road you really can't trust them. DePaul is a team that's on the improve, but again it's just inconsistent. And of course, you never know what you're going to get out of Georgetown. So I'm really down on this program. I think Butler is one of the better teams. Xavier. Xavier's a team that gets hot late, so let's see if they make that big push. We always see Xavier make deep runs in the NCAA tournament, so we'll see if they can do it again this year, but they have had trouble with their three-point shooting. And again, is it psychologically with these teams? Remember, they moved the line back, and there's some teams that we've seen the three-point numbers go down with some of these big programs. So we'll see how it all plays out here. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed here with this Big East. There could be a year for the mid-majors really to go deep in these tournaments.
So what do you think the strongest conference is right now?
It's a really good question here. We're looking at I always lean toward the Big 12 because I really like the defensive style of Texas Tech. I know Texas has struggled, but they do defend. Kansas is a strong team. The Big Ten is always going to be in the discussion, but Michigan State, we've seen some really bad losses, and it's really the home courts have held up in the Big Ten. The good teams are getting pounded on the road. We just saw a week ago, Michigan State get blown out at Purdue, and of course we saw Minnesota lose on Sunday. So. It's really a grab bag. And, of course, out west in the Pac-12, I'm really disappointed with Washington. They have not looked good. Oregon's had some close finishes, and they've lost some games they should have won. So, the power conferences have been a disappointment to me this year. North Carolina has been another team that has not played well at all in the ACC. Yeah, they did have that one injury, but you think they'd have the depth to overcome it. But no, they've looked poor this season. So it's really a grab bag. I know people are high on Gonzaga. They're high on Baylor. Baylor has been a hot team. So Gonzaga, Baylor is a team to look at. So is Dayton. And the Mountain West, San Diego State, undefeated and playing well. That's a team that could go deep in the tournament because of the weakness surrounding the major conferences right now. So
is this a year you think for a surprise? And look, I'm tired of getting to March Madness and everyone looks at Gonzaga and say, oh, the fairy tale. Listen, that fairy tale's been the same fairy tale year over year. I mean, it's got a great program. We should expect to see him always going deep Sweet 16, Elite 8 and onwards. But what about a San Diego State?
Yeah, San Diego State has a show. We'll see if their offense can rise when they get deep into the tournament. That's something to look at. But they're a really good defensive team. Dayton's another team. Dayton Flyers. They made attention there in the Maui Classic. That's a mid-major there that can make some noise this year. So that's one I'll be looking at. Here's a long shot for East Tennessee State. This is a team that I've looked at. They pulled up some wins. They actually beat LSU this year, so that might be a team, if they get in, could be very dangerous. Akron's a team that I always keep an eye on, the MAC, that can make some noise. You never could pull some upsets here, maybe win a game in the big dance. So there's some definitely teams out there that can make some noise.
Tony Tellez, always a pleasure. Maybe we'll do a whole segment on this potential surprises once we get to March Madness. Tony T, always a pleasure. You can find Tony at picksandparlays.net. I'll be right back to wrap it up after the break. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays. Nick Geber with you. Find me on Twitter, by the way, at Nick Geber. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you'll see it right there. I won't just point at like empty air, making me look like a bigger fool than I probably am already. Okay, anyway, let's get to it. We've had a really busy show today. Lots of free picks for you. And don't forget, we have a lot more at picksandparlays.net. And we also have our expert picks for you. Get even more into the minds of our handicappers. Get more accurate, better, intelligent. Look, we've got it all for you. 15% off right now. Use promo code TIE. Let's wrap up what we did today, though. We started with Tony Brown, Triple P, starting with some NBA. Clippers at Mavs. He said take the Mavs -1.5. And for the NHL, Islanders Rangers, take the Rangers -120. And the Golden Knights, Boston Bruins, take the Bruins -110. We had a fascinating discussion, by the way, with Joe Duffy about Super Bowl picks and trends and some betting strategies for you. So we didn't really give out a lot of hard picks, so to speak, except Joe specifically said take under in the fourth quarter in this game. But you want to, if you've missed that segment, go back and check it out, because if you want to bet the Super Bowl, there's lots of really fantastic information, tasty information for you there. And lastly, college basketball with Tony T. Butler Villanova, take Butler +4. K-State at Kansas, big rivalry, take K-State +15. Georgia at Kentucky, take Kentucky -11.5. And Miami at Duke, take Duke -17.5. Take the points. All right. I'm with you every day, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. And as I mentioned, streaming live throughout the day right here, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We've got lots of free picks on the site, picksandparlays.net. By the way, make us a regular part of your week. If you want to bet on sports, do yourself a favor and bet with the best sporting intelligence you can get. And there is no place you're going to get more sporting intelligence, better insight, better analysis, better picks than at picksandparlays.net, whether our free picks or you're going to go all the way with our expert picks and packages from any one of our 35 star handicappers. Right now, 15% off, promo code TIE, T-I-E, picksandparlays.net. I'll be back with you tomorrow. In the meantime, look me up on Twitter at Nick Geber, and we'll be back tomorrow with loads more free picks right here on Picks and Parlays. Until then, bet, win, repeat.